Record. All right. Hi, everybody. This is Sanjay. I'm interviewing my friend Eugene here. Eugene and I went to college together at Cornell, and we started doing breathing and meditation together. We've kept in loose touch over the years, but I thought I'd just catch up with him. And he's a psychologist or a therapist by profession. So I'll be asking him a little bit about his experience with his work and his spiritual life and anything else, and it'll be a natural conversation. So let's see how it goes. I'm not too experienced at this yet, so let's see what happens.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm looking, forward to giving it a try as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I just read from Guruji. He said that the voices for peace in this world need to be as loud as the voices for war or violence, right? Paraphrased, of course.
Uh,
But
yeah.
many times people who are peaceful, they do it sitting in a quiet room, and
Right.
people who are, agitated will really make a fuss in the world. So Guruji had said the voices for peace need to be loud. So that's kind of the spirit in which this podcast is starting, or
Yeah.
interview show is
I like
starting.
that. Yeah, I think oftentimes it's easy to just to let there are a lot of people sometimes will make their voices heard further in, but I think it's an important thing to have with people who are more for I don't know, for peace and just love, and it doesn't always get maybe as expressed.
Yeah, maybe we're just sitting quietly meditating or watching Impractical Jokers or playing music or whatever. And we don't really, it's maybe not in our nature as much to go out and make a fuss, but, you know, with the state that the world's in right now, we really need to make it known that there are people out there who just want to be kind and happy and spread
Yeah.
that to other people,
Yeah.
because our voices often are not heard in the mainstream media, in
Yeah.
the, social media. It's not too much heard like that, right?
Right. Something I've actually been struggling with a bit as well in recent times is like, because I used to more so just post about all these different, political things and human rights, and I still kind of do, but then part of me, I'm like, wow, I'm like really spending a lot of time. Maybe I should just spend more time on my own like personal, spiritual path and not worry so much about it. So it's been something. It hasn't. I still don't have like a clear, I think, understanding for myself what the best. I don't know, whatever balancer it is, but I've at times vacillated between the two. I think.
I think as you meditate, as you start to do yoga and get into knowledge, this natural compassion for the larger world does happen, right? It's like
Yeah.
part of it. But maybe we have to learn to channel that intelligently so that our efforts actually are useful for both us and for others, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But speaking of larger issues in the world, it's pretty hard not to notice this Canadian Freedom Convoy, right?
Oh well, that is why. I mean, and certainly the thing with Ukraine at the moment is.
Absolutely. Aren't you from Ukraine?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I was born there, and for me, it's quite a maybe even more personal than probably more personal
Oh,
than.
absolutely.
But yeah, because we have some family that like more distant family. I don't really know them well, but we do have some, and we have my father has he has really good friends there, and so it's really kind of a shame what's going on there as well.
Do you
Yeah.
have an accurate picture of what's really happening on the ground there?
Um, Not so much. I mean, it's hard to. I just
Hard
know
to
that.
know the truth, right?
Well, it is. Yeah. I mean, in my view, and I like to look at it as objectively as I can, but I clearly view, in this case, the Russian government as the aggressor. I don't really see what Ukraine has done wrong. I think they're clearly the victim, but that's kind of my view. Yeah.
Back when I was in college, I read this book called How to Read a Book, which is a very interesting book on how to
Mhm.
critically read. But that
Yeah.
author, Mortimer Adler, had written another book in which he said that every country is, now this is, the word is specifically defined here. All countries are perpetually in Cold War, which means they're competing for a limited set of resources. So
Yeah.
even though there may not be a hot war where there's shots fired and bombs
Mhm.
dropped, there's always this perpetual low-key passive aggression between
Mhm.
nations. You know,
Right.
that
Yeah,
makes
it's
sense?
interesting that because I was reading something. It just reminded me of something I was reading in a Ram Dass book where he was talking about how you know how nations generally behave like individual, very, strong individual egos, and
Yeah.
just war amongst themselves in one way or another, or compete like a lot of sort of yeah, ego type stuff just on the level of nations. So I thought that was kind of a interesting, I guess, analogy he made. But I could see how that. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, you know. Um, Maybe the old paradigm is again, like I said, that there's a fixed set of resources, and the nations have to compete for their prosperity and their comfort and their
Hmm.
sway in the world and their security. But maybe now we're moving into a new paradigm where uh, there's enough for everybody to go around. You know, we can use new energy sources and
Yeah.
sustainable ways of living that we can all get together. But that old world, there seems to be some this kind of tug of war between the old paradigm and the new one.
Sure. Sure.
That's
And I
what I'm
think
seeing
there,
anyway.
there are other big change that's, well, we'll see how what goes on. But I've been noticing more and more the concept of people not being like, I think it's okay, definitely okay to be, proud and patriotic and everything, whichever country you come from. But I think it does have a kind of dark side where it can turn more, just extremely nationalistic, and I'm better than you, and from my country's better than your country, and that sort of thing. And then what I've been noticing, and I'm a kind of fan of this, is the idea of going beyond, um, the idea of just like, I like to view myself more as a, you could say, maybe like a global citizen or a citizen of the maybe the universe. It doesn't mean I have citizenship in every country, but it's just, I think it helps to broaden your view, because it's just, it also helps in that way to see people as part of maybe like a one world family, versus like, you
Totally.
know like my country's the best, these other people don't really matter, or I'm better than them, all of that.
Yeah. You know, maybe in American society, we have this big push for like family and like I take care of my family. And maybe for some people that's very good. They're moving beyond themselves. But
Hmm.
at some point it can become like, have you ever heard this phrase, us for and no more?
I haven't heard that. I heard it's kind of like the us and them,
Well, no, I
etc.
mean the phrase us for and no more is like I'll take care of my wife, my kids,
Oh, I
and
see.
nobody else.
Oh, yeah, that's a very, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's, I think so. Like you said, I think it's good that some people move beyond just like, oh, I'm just gonna worry about me. But I think it's really nice when people are able to move beyond that, even say like, uh, like taking care of the whole world in a way, or like caring about the whole world.
Absolutely.
Still kind of a problematic, I think, or not the best, when you say like, okay, well, I'll take care of my my wife and kids, but everyone else can go screw themselves. Like,
Yeah,
it's just
totally.
feel like, and there's even a good movie I watched about that recently. It's a Russian language film, but it kind of explored that point as well.
Yeah. By the way, I have a global citizenship of the world card. Let me show it to you. It's
Oh,
my
I like.
international passport.
Oh, sweet. Where did you get that?
Oh
What
no,
is it?
this is just a picture of Guruji. It's a nice quote.
Oh, it's a picture of Bruges. Oh, I didn't see it on the
See
video.
it?
Got it. Oh, that's cool. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So jokes aside, but yeah, and then the kind of thing happens the same. Us for and no more kind of, if you get a little bigger, can extend to the nation, right? But I noticed both in religion and in like nationalism, people have such a great experience with their own faith or their own country,
Yeah.
and they just feel on the feeling level, oh, this is the supreme, this is so wonderful. But then
Right.
that's fine on the feeling level. Oh, my dad is the greatest. It's just that when you start to move it to the head level and compare it to other people's dads or other people's religions, or
Right.
I, yeah, and then that's a very good truth on the heart level. But on the head level, it really doesn't work as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's a process. I think people are at, maybe, different stages where, some, like you said, somebody, maybe they move beyond their family, say like, well, let's, they move on to the country level, and they care about people from their country. But I I just think it's so nice when people are able to sort of, even move beyond that and move further out, and let's like say the world, and then, well, I guess you could say the universe potentially. I don't know what else is out there, but I think it's so really, I think it's just quite beautiful and nice when you can expand that view and to include just as much as possible, I suppose.
I like what you said about the universe. The day I see somebody complaining about polluting on Mars, I'll be very impressed.
Yeah,
We have to save Mars's atmosphere.
yeah. Well, because the thing is, if you limit yourself to even this, I know it sounds a little maybe kooky, but like if there's which it very well might be, I don't know, but there could be other forms of life on other planets, and what intelligent or not. But I think if you're going to go there, why not include that too? Because then if you stop at the Earth level, you're like, well, I respect and care about everything on Earth, but the rest of the universe can sort of
And F off.
care about that. So I don't know.
Well,
It's just something I've been thinking of, and I think even getting to the level of like being able to relate to other people, other parts of the world, and seeing people as part of like a one world family, I think is a really good step as it is.
yeah, totally. But again, maybe on a more practical level, we could, instead of going to Mars and Jupiter, we
Yeah,
could extend our compassion to animals and plant life and
of
Mother Earth,
course.
because
Yeah,
those are
everything.
clear things where, um, even if we're still thinking for ourselves, when the planet suffers and the animals suffer, we
Yeah.
also suffer, right?
Oh, I totally agree with you. I think it does need to go. Yeah, I think it's caring for uh yeah, I mean the whole planet, everything on it, the entirety. Yeah, like you said, I mean, like I said, we could go out to, the whole universe. But I think just everything, because if you, like you're saying, if you care about people, you don't care about the environment, that's can be a problem too. And or about animals, it's all important. I think it's all
Yeah.
important.
And I guess what comes out of that, it's not necessarily that you and I have to that I have to go heal a wounded zebra in South Africa. I have to fly over there because I care about that zebra.
Right.
But it's maybe just more of a sense of honor about everything,
Yeah. Yeah.
not taking anything casually or as worthless or as less than me. Even if I can't actually do much, just having that inner sense of honor about
Oh
taking
yeah.
care of other lives, right?
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree with you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's actually, I think yoga people and new age people have known what was going to happen in the world for a long time. It's indicated in the astrology, and we'll talk
Hmm.
about it. But now we actually see it happening in front of us.
Hmm.
It's have you been following the news for the Canadian Freedom Convoy?
I have a little, not as much as Ukraine, maybe just because I'm a little biased
It's
towards.
personal, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but see, even there, again, the concept comes back to like, oh well, it matters. Like it's closer to me, so therefore, and I think it's a natural thing for
It's not
people.
wrong, I don't think.
I understand. Yeah, it's just interesting, almost to me, like almost psychologically. When like for example, like being male, like I may be more attracted to some causes that well, it's hard to if you're a white male, it's not you know uh but I would imagine that if I were female, I would maybe, I don't know, maybe I'd be more vocal about women's rights. It's not that I'm not for it or anything, but I think it's easy to have like a certain bias sometimes too, right?
What I heard was that it's kind of a circle. You take care of yourself, and then you take care of your family, then you take care of
Yeah.
your community, and then you
Yeah.
take care of your country. So it's not wrong that you're taking care of your home country. Like that's a natural thing. We
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
just also extend beyond that, right?
Sure.
If we
That's
can.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's like the Ukraine thing is really the first example in the Western world of a conquest that's happened in, of course, there was the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, there's what happened to Libya, but it's really hitting home for us that potentially a global conflict happened. It's not
Yeah.
only about Ukraine for us, it's like a larger thing that could unfold.
Well, and it reminds a little bit of, I'm not saying the exact thing, I don't know what'll happen with it, but it's a little bit concerning in the sense that it almost reminds like, how during World War II, there was also initially not much concern about like, well,
Yeah,
this
like Poland, right?
they'll take over that place, but then it won't go further than that. And I'm not saying in this case it will, but I just, it is concerning because there have been territory grabs in Georgia and Ukraine, and it's just sort of and Ukraine's kind of the buffer zone between the rest of Europe and Russia. And so I think
Oh, is Ukraine the chain link between Western Europe and Eastern Europe?
Well, that's kind of how I would see it, because they have a bid, or are interested long term to join the EU, and in Putin's Russia, Putin does not want that. I think he would much rather have Ukraine as like a safe zone between maybe his country and the EU, or just have full control. Who knows? But either way, it's an important strategic um, location, I think, because it's right on the border of kind of EU slash and then Russia, and so there's reasons, I think, why it's been there's the conflict there, but I think it's important to for well, leader, not that I don't think we're in the position to do much necessarily about it. I don't know, but hopefully um there are some, the NATO, whatever, Western leaders will be strong enough to I don't know, to be able to draw the line somewhere, and not just not sort of cave in, and yeah, we'll see what
Yeah,
happens.
it's very difficult as a commentator at a distance to really know what's happening. I think
Yeah,
these geopolitical issues are more complicated than people realize because, first of all, I would say America's influence in the world is not as benevolent as some of us Americans would like to believe.
oh, I
I think
totally,
we're a
yeah,
lot dirtier than our public would like to admit. So
yeah,
maybe for the purpose of this interview or podcast, let's shift the discussion because really I was thinking of calling it Voices for Peace. And like,
yeah,
it's enough to mention what I really wanted to just get out there was that the situation in the world is a bit distressing. I don't
yeah,
really know the solution or want to go into it because I just
yeah.
don't know.
I think it's going to be important to. Well, I think what we can say is that we hope that peace will prevail. I suppose.
Yeah. I think this movement in the world, at least what I've seen, what I've heard, is something that nature is doing to force us to really unite and come together. Maybe this uh, outward distress and the pandemic and the whispers of war and even natural disasters really just to bring us back to our roots and to community.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
COVID,
it's
I think, as well, has been has been a big wake up call. I think for a lot of
yeah,
people, you could see there's a change going on. Like, I think there's a lot of changes going on at the moment. I won't go into these about maybe what they are, because part of it
yeah,
is pressing. But I think these sorts of events um, can lead to a lot of good changes, actually. Further, much horrible as they are at the moment,
right.
but it can be a wake up call, a shift in maybe global, I don't know, consciousness. Who knows? But yeah,
Totally.
yeah,
So we're kind of drifting a little bit from me and you. We're kind of going into the world issues, but let's bring it back to earth a little bit.
sure, sure.
COVID was supposed to help the silence and solitude, has helped a lot of people pick up projects which they had postponed. So I wondered,
Yeah,
uh, you personally during COVID, did you do anything that you had been meaning to do for a long time?
yeah. So I guess a couple of things, because it for me it was also a big, and you could say in some ways maybe a wake up call. But I one thing I did is I did this online PhD program that I've been meaning to do for a lot, and I had the time, so I wrote I did the program, wrote a whole dissertation on, like, on basically criticism of the mental health field, and it was, I think, a valuable exercise for me. But that's, academics aside, I also, as a kid, I used to collect coins, and so I got back into, like, I dug up my old coin collection, which had been sitting, and just in general, there was a lot of cleaning that needed to be done of old documents, just kind of shedding all the old, and so I went through and did that, dug up my old coin collection, like, kind of almost redeveloped a bit of a passion for that, and went through everything, reorganized it, and it was in a way, it was a nice period of time, because it just let me, those are just two examples. Like, I did more things. I think I got more into photography, and I also, it may have been around that time, I don't know for, but yeah, I think around this time in general, that I got back into spirituality, I think, which I,
That's the big one.
yeah, well, that's the most important one. I mean, the other stuff is, it's fun, with coins and everything, but it's not like I don't find, like, my life's meaning or anything in that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we've probably been talking, what, like 20, 30 minutes now. I think the modern attention span is not so long, so maybe we'll wrap it up pretty soon. But yeah, I just wanted to give a concluding note. I think what the world is going through is a little difficult right now, but I think we're gonna make it for the most part, you know,
Mhm.
and the world that emerges is going to be better than the one that we started with. And I
Yeah.
think when all is said and done, we're going to be, and even though the changes are very painful and scary and all that, I think at the end of it, you know, the sages and saints are prophesizing we're going to see a heaven on earth, you know, universal harmony, the world will
Mhm.
come together. So if you could just give some concluding thoughts on that, what do you see happening? You know, what do you hope for? What do
I,
you, can you,
well, I would agree. I think that we're, obviously it's been a very difficult time with COVID and now, this situation with Ukraine and so many well, and then there were you know, the situation with George Floyd and the protests and everything going on. It's just been there's been a lot of turmoil, but I think you're right in the sense that I think some that these things will probably through whatever mechanism will probably lead to a better world down the line. I think and there have been instances of things like this before with major world events, and I think that in a strange way, a lot of good things can come out of it. Out of these extreme shifts, and like it's like a sledgehammer sometimes of sorts. I feel like.
yeah, totally.
Um,
Yeah. You know, and I think maybe the solution for all this is maybe not, you know, maybe this activism like the Canadian Freedom Convoy and our American People's Convoy is needed, but maybe the real solution is I saw something from Annalise on Instagram the other day. She
mhm.
said instead of becoming activists, this is how she said it, we should become racktivists, RAK, random
Okay.
acts of kindness.
Oh
You know?
yes, yeah, yeah,
So maybe like our solution is, you know, definitely at the macro level, some things have to be done. But the real solution maybe is we should all just be nice to each other, right?
yeah. I think well, that's a big part of it. I think just in your own yeah, through your own everyday actions, because it might be hard to just even frustrating to try to tackle a whole huge global problem or societal problem. But I think if you maybe doing what you can do just in your everyday, like being more understanding and kind to the people around you and more empathetic and more things of that nature, and kind of just working on yourself. I think that can be such a big make such a big difference too.
Yeah. Yes, I think we'll probably wrap here. A little bit, the discussion was a little bit